What's going on, guys? It is Malcolm the Machine Wellmaker, and welcome back to my YouTube. Happy 2026. Today I'm gonna be discussing, a lot of my thoughts and reflections on 2025, and I'm gonna be talking a lot about, what I plan on doing for 2026, my expectations, my goals, what's new. And speaking on what's new, first thing is I cut my hair. So, um, yeah, we got a new look, a very, very new look. Now I know, the long hair, the braids when I fight, was almost like part of my identity. Um, but I don't know. I guess the question is, why did I cut my hair? Getting cleaned up. Like I had a wedding to go to a couple weeks ago. Is always hard to do. It's no fun. It never does what I want it to do. Training with it is a headache. It's constantly dry, so I constantly have to wash and condition it. Um, and to be honest, I really think I was almost looking for you know to reinvent myself. Almost, I was looking for to make some major changes, internally and externally, and maybe that's why I cut the hair. I don't know, it could be subconscious. But all in all, I'm very happy with it. I think it looks good. I actually think it makes me look younger, not that I needed to. um and I don't know. I don't really have a big plan for what I'm gonna do with it yet. You know what I mean? But y'all let me know what y'all think. Y'all can roast me in the comments if y'all think it's ugly, or if y'all just want to troll, because I know the trolls love me. Let me know y'all thoughts. One of the big things that I want to do with this video is kind of just talk about 2025 from my perspective. Obviously the fights, but the stuff that happened in my life too. The way I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna lay out a timeline of what my year in 2025 looked like for me. So obviously, I worked construction from the beginning of the year until my UFC debut. So the first 4 months of the year, I'm working full time as a pipe fitter welder, and then this is also crazy, but I got married in February. I went down to the courthouse, and we they had $50 ceremonies on Valentine's Day. So me and my wife got a courthouse marriage done, and then we actually had a small ceremony 2 weeks later. It was beautiful. So I actually got married just a couple months before I made it into the UFC, as far as making my debut. Then obviously in April I make my UFC debut, Kansas City, against Cameron Simon, getting a crazy knockout, 50K bonus, and immediately quit my job on Monday morning. It was really like a fairy tale uh, ending to my pipe fitting career. Um, and I've told the story many times, and it's just one of the most bittersweet moments of my life. Shortly after that, I actually had my son. My son was born May 19th of 2025. So, mid-April, I make my UFC debut. And then in May, I have my son. And then a month later in June, I actually get to fight in Atlanta against Chris Mutino, a huge name, on 11 days notice. And as the story goes, y'all know, I go out there again, get another first round knockout, another 50K bonus, and a crowd that feels like they all my family. And it was the most absurd night I could imagine. So right after that fight with Chris Mutino, I fly out to Cali and do the Jackson podcast. I meet Bear, I meet Rampage, I get to work mitts at the compound with Yogi, the boxing coach. Um, and that experience in itself, meeting Rampage, was absolutely incredible. I felt like I got to have a great conversation with him. And that was my first time being in California. It was the most beautiful thing ever. My manager Jacob, he's from that area, and he drove me around like these beaches and neighborhoods and showed me so much stuff I never saw before. And I just remember, like, you know, like almost like going into a trance, like staring off into the scenery and like not being able to believe what I've done with my life. I come back to Augusta, the mayor of Augusta invites me to a city hall meeting, and he recognizes me in front of the commission, and they bring me up there to give a speech, and it was like just this incredible moment that is still wild when I look back and think about it. And, I got to do a couple of events in Augusta and do some small scale give back with the little bit of success that I do have. So, I went to a couple schools, talked to a couple groups of kids, did a couple, I did some book bag drives, I've done some toy drives, just small stuff, and not even nearly as much as I want to do in the future when I really, really achieve success. But it felt really good to start making, that footprint, that impression on my city, and letting them know that all this success that I experience, I plan on sharing with my city. Fast forward a couple more months, and I get the phone call that I'm gonna be fighting at Madison Square Garden in November on the Islam Makhachev versus JDM undercard. Brother, there were I still can't even describe how I felt when I realized I was getting that fight. Um, you know, Obviously there's so much going on with it. 2 days right after signing and announcing, my opponent gets injured, then we get another opponent, and then all the crazy stuff that actually happens. But aside from that, brother, I got to go in studio and do an interview with Ariel Helwani. Like, even now saying that is crazy because Ariel has been like a absolute, a staple in MMA media since I've ever found out about MMA. He interviews the biggest athletes and personalities in fighting to this day. And I got to go in studio and do an interview with him when I was in New York, and the way that him and his team treated me was absolutely incredible. That was like the best hour of conversation I've ever had in my life. I love that guy, and I'm still, blown away that I got that opportunity. And I got featured on UFC Embedded for the first time. They reached out to me before the fight and they were like, "Hey, we want you on Embedded." And I'm like, "Y'all want me?" And they're like, "Yeah, you're a star." And I'm like still in disbelief that they wanted to do a feature on me. And that was fun because that was my first real time in New York. And I got to go to the Schwartz toy store that I saw in the movie Elf, when I was a kid. And New York was just, it was crazy. It was so incredible. And they got to document my experience on UFC Embedded. It's going to live forever. My son's going to be able to see it one day. And then bittersweet as well, but I got to meet Joe Rogan literally before I walked out at Madison Square Garden. When I'm on deck waiting for the call, somebody walks by and taps me on the shoulder, and they're walking by me as they go into the bathroom. And they say, "Hey man, good luck out there." And I look, and it's Joe Rogan, bro. Y'all have no idea how many hours of his podcast I have watched and consumed. Um, I love that guy. I admire a lot of things about that guy. And when I said to him, "Oh my goodness, it's Joe Rogan, brother. I am a huge fan." He said, "Well, man, I'm excited to see you fight." And that in itself was something that touched my heart. So that was a huge moment for me as well, kind of wrapped up in this Madison Square Garden experience that I had. I get a fight of the month, recognition from the UFC. Absolutely mind blowing. And then shortly after that, they start announcing the nominations for the UFC Honors of 2025, and then I get nominated for UFC Debut of the Year. It's incredible, and it was just a nice way to finish off the year and remind me that regardless of whether I'm undefeated, whether I won, whether I lost in my most recent fight, that man, I've accomplished some great things and I've come so far in just a short amount of time. So now to kind of give you my thoughts on everything as a whole, I mean, 2025 was absolutely crazy. Like I said, I get married in February. I have my UFC debut, get a bonus, quit my job, and then I have my son the next month. Then I fight again the following month in Atlanta on 11 days notice, get a knockout against a big name, and then, get all these opportunities to work with these huge companies. And then I end up having the opportunity to fight an MSG debut year. Like, just, it's so much to try to comprehend. Like, you have, guys, you got to think about, I was literally on a job site, you know, 8 months ago. Just 8 months ago, I was still waking up at 6 in the morning, going to work, working a full 10-hour shift before heading to the gym and training until having to get up and do it again the next day. So for my life to go from, being on the clock as a welder and steel toe boots and to do all those things in just a matter of months, um, I don't know that I can have a year that dramatically changes my life as much as 2025 did. Obviously I plan on having success in the future, but like, how much is that success actually going to change the way my life looks? My life looks absolutely nothing like it looked 8 months ago. And I just have to say 2025 was an incredible year of absolute blessings for me, for my family, and I'm happy with it. So now to talk a little bit about 2026, I think the question that everybody want to know is, when is my next fight? And the answer to that is most likely March or April. Now, to be honest, I wanted to fight before that. I even kind of pushed my manager to try to get me on a fight card in January. Um, but it didn't pan out. And for those of you that do or don't know, I'm Muslim, so I'll be fasting for the month of Ramadan, which starts about, I think it's February 17th to around like March 15th. So to avoid me having to compete while I'm fasting, obviously, we'll be looking to try to get a fight date in late March or anytime in April. So that's the plan. And the silver lining is that I am adapting a lot of different concepts and changes to my fight style uh, to obviously make me better. And with a little bit more time to, implement good habits into my fighting, is going to make for better progress in the future. So when I come out and I do fight in April, I'll be able to hit the ground running again, um, and really, really make some waves this year. One of the big things that I've implemented so far already, as of late last year and moving forward this year, is I am working with a boxing coach. So believe it or not, I've never worked just strictly boxing with a boxing specialist, like a boxing coach, like a traditional boxing teacher. Never. Everything, all the boxing I learned was from my coaches who are MMA fighters or, Muay Thai guys. And like, obviously, I watch a lot of boxing. I've done a lot of work on my own, worked the bag a lot, done boxing rounds with my teammates as well. But I've never learned the art of boxing from a boxing coach. And so after my last fight, that was something that I wanted to pursue for many reasons, obviously. And there was this coach named Mustafa. He's located in Atlanta, which is close to me, and I know a lot of athletes in Atlanta. And I had heard of him, I had seen him before, but some months ago, in 2025, I remember seeing a post of him and Lil Baby, and they took a picture together saying that they was gonna open a gym in Atlanta. And I commented on that picture, and I said, I'm trying to come through. And at the time, like, I wasn't actually looking for a boxing coach, but if Lil Baby was finna start a gym in Atlanta with Mustafa, I was gonna definitely try to stop by. Mustafa has worked with, I mean, tons and tons of high level boxers. Um, Namely, one that's real popular, obviously, is Javante Davis. He's worked with him. He's also worked very closely with Tevin Farmer, cornered him, ran his camps. I mean, Tevin Farmer is a former world champion, super high level. And the thing that I like the most about him is that he is a old school fundamentalist. Like he doesn't buy into a lot of the new hype and things that about in more of the modern era. He believes in good old school principles, a good jab, good defense, an economical style, and a lot of things that are going to help my game a lot. And he is huge on psychology. Half of the time we spend together is just discussion, and that has been very powerful to me. So, yeah, I'll be working with him for the foreseeable future, and I'm excited to see how the things I learned from him I'll be able to bring over to MMA and have success. And of course, we have to talk about my plans and my goals for 2026. So it's not really a super long list, and it's really simple. My first goal is to get back in the win column. The first thing I care about is going out there and winning my next fight. That is the most important thing to me. Whenever that fight, whenever I get a contract, when I get a name, it's going to be serious. You know what I mean? I'm gonna really do thorough film study. I'm gonna make sure we have a great game plan. I'm going to be just as focused as I've been in my previous camps. My conditioning will be great. My technique will be the best it's ever been, and my strategy will be absolute top tier. And I plan on putting on a clinic of a performance, regardless of who it is. My second goal is to get ranked in 2026. I think that with the name I built, I think that with the performances I put on, and given that I go out there and do what I'm supposed to do, and my next fight or two, a ranked opponent is 100% possible. I don't know who the ranked opponent could be. Obviously, there's a few different options, and the fight game happens fast. So it could be a name that doesn't even come to mind at this very moment when that opportunity actually comes. But that is a very big goal of mine. I want to be ranked by the end of 2026. And the last goal that I really have, as far as my fight career goes, is I want my interview with Joe Rogan. Oh man, you guys have no idea how much I was looking forward to that moment after my fight, to just embrace Joe Rogan, tell him how much I love him. And when that got taken from me, man, that stung almost worse than any part about losing that fight. I feel like I rather would have lost one of my first two fights instead of losing the fight where I would have had the opportunity to talk to Joe Rogan. But because of that, it's put much more of a fire up under me, and I am dead set on getting my microphone time with Joe Rogan, because I love that guy, and that is a moment that I've envisioned for years and years and years before I got here, and I will not be denied. And finally, I am going to answer some questions from the people who shot me some messages on Instagram. So if I didn't do yours, I love you still, but I'm sorry. I kind of had to go with the ones that was best fit to keep the list short. So here we go. Question from the Undercard MMA. What was your favorite moment of 2025? Um, Man, I think my favorite moment of 2025 was, bro, it was walking out in Atlanta uh to "Oh Let's Do It" by Waka Flocka. If you could have heard that crowd, oh my goodness. And I feed off the crowd's energy. So when I started walking out and I'm singing the song and I realized the whole stadium is rapping it with me, I turned up so much that by the time I got to the cage, I was almost out of breath. And thank goodness I knocked out Chris in the first round. Question from Eager Rustic Sherbert. Do you regret quitting your job in construction? Were you union or non-union? Do I regret it? Absolutely not. Me quitting my job put me in a position where I could really focus on my craft, get a lot better, maximize, my ability to put myself out there for, my fan base and the media. And I think that's a big reason as why I've been so successful. There's no way I could do what I'm doing right now while working 40 plus hours on a construction site. And I was union. The union, taught me everything I know. Question from Arda TML2. How many fights do you plan on doing in 2026? Um, at least three. Obviously, since my first fight probably won't be till March or April, that kind of puts me in a pressure to get more than three. But if I could get four, would be amazing. Five would be ridiculous, but if I could, I would. You know what I mean? But at least three, four would be incredible. Question from Jerome Tiunayan. Maybe an elephant in the room. Can you give us your thoughts, if any, on Peyton Talbot's trajectory and how you envision an eventual bout? I feel there are definite similarities between you both. Touted prospects, a lot of well-deserved hype, and having to bounce back from a loss. Brother, did you see Peyton Talbot against Henry Cejudo? That boy put in work. And that's, obviously after what he did to Felipe Lima, who is also a very respected prospect in the division, with great ground game. I think we are watching Peyton Talbot develop in front of our eyes. He already had a lot of gifts, but to see him develop this maturity in the cage, apply this experience, and perform better and better against more and more talented opposition, brother, I think he is on track to do great things. I think he could potentially be a future champion. And even if he doesn't accomplish gold, he will for sure be around for a while, putting on very entertaining fights at the top of the division. Thoughts on the future fight? I think it could happen. I really do. You know, I just have to do what I'm supposed to do to make sure that I align with his path, and I think that could be one of the banger fights in my future for both of us. Question from Mohammed: how have you been able to navigate through having the spotlight? Like now, your life is low key under a microscope to the public. Oh man, this is an incredible question. Um, you know, obviously I still live in Augusta. So everywhere I go, bro, people know who I am. I mean, everywhere I go. A lot of times people do stop and say hey and tell me how much they like what I'm doing. A lot of times people ask for pictures. You know me, I take every picture I can. But with that being said too, you know, I have to handle everything you know, as if there's people watching and knowing who I am. So like for instance, you know, literally a couple days ago, I was walking through a parking lot and a guy in a truck like beeps his horn real aggressively at me and my coach because we were walking through the driving lane in the parking lot. And my instant reaction is to get a little frustrated and wanting to turn and look at him and maybe say something. But again, like this guy might know who I am, and if I say the wrong thing, if I do the wrong thing, it could be really bad on my image. So it's hard, it's tough. But to be honest, it's not really tough because I am who I put out there. So like I am a nice guy. I am a patient guy. I am a positive guy. So generally speaking, it's not something I have to put conscious thought or effort into. But in certain challenging situations like those, it does get a little bit tricky. Question from Will: who's your dream opponent for 2026? I don't have a dream opponent. As long as they rank, that's my dream opponent. Question from 59 Simba: how did the loss affect your pride, self-esteem, and things of that nature? I lost my first MMA fight and would like to know thoughts after a loss. Boy, if you are a winner, right? Not because you win fights, but because you pursue the best of yourself. You have a high standard for yourself, and failure is never acceptable. A loss is hard. Oh man, that was look, I don't take this wrong way, but I don't necessarily believe in depression, right? Or at least myself, I don't really get depressed. Even in like my darkest times, like of my life, depression wasn't a word that I would use to identify the state that I was in. But after that fight, like I was close to it, thankfully it didn't last much longer than a week, like the real darkness of it. Um, but man, you know, it's tough how it affected my pride. Um, you know, when you are fresh off of that traumatic experience, for lack of better words, you're very vulnerable. Um, and that's when the presses are hot for, you know, media, for the entertainment industry. So like now, if a troll says something, bro, it bounces off of me. It's nothing, right? I got thick skin. But that week after my fight, man, there's things people said, and nothing out of the ordinary, right? Things that people say when somebody that's, you know, in the spotlight loses, that cut me deep. Oh man. I mean, bro, it was hard to even open my phone, because to read the things people were saying, to feel like so many people turned on me, um it was hard, bro. It was very painful, and I'm just glad that it got better with time. But as far as my self-esteem and pride, you know, what am I, a month and a half removed from it? My pride and self-esteem is where it was before the fight. You know, that was good for me, and I think that also is in the nature of a winner. Again, somebody that, you know, demands the best out of themselves and pursues the best, the greatest accomplishments they can. You know, I'm good now. I'm more confident now than I was before the loss. But again, you know, it took time, and it took a lot of intentional reflecting and sitting with, you know, those hard thoughts and conversations. Question from Nazi in 8. How big is the pressure to stand in front of thousands? It ain't hard for me. Look, man, I was blessed with something. I don't know what it is, but in all the big stages and arenas I fought in, I was no more nervous or felt no more necessarily like pressure in that moment before the fight or during the fight than I did when I was fighting in the local scene in Augusta or Atlanta, man. I just I don't know, man. I guess I got a special, you know, gift that in those moments I enjoy, you know, being in front of a big crowd, you know, 100 people, 1,000 people, 15 to 20,000, right? They all feel the same to me, man. I just love fighting and I love performing. Question from Gerbil. How do you feel going through this new kind of adversity, proving the haters wrong and learning from your loss at MSG? All right, check this out. Terrence Crawford just retired, and he put out a piece of content announcing his retirement. And he said the thing that kept him going, the thing that made him train the hardest was not the belts, was not the money, but it was going out there and proving people wrong. And man, when I heard him say that, it gave me chills, man, because I can now really, really relate to that. Like there was already people when I got signed saying I was too old, right? There was already people when I got signed saying I was a one-trick pony. And now there's a lot of people who, you know, say I got fraud checked, who said that, you know, I was overhyped. And oh man, my desire to prove them wrong is more fire than my desire alone to just win. Like it is being in a position that's a blessing, because that motivation right there is going to push me to new limits, and I'm happy with it. Question from Kayvon Sullivan. Do you ever plan to cross train at bigger gyms? No disrespect to the guys at Fagler's, but as you move up the rankings, there are many high level grapplers and wrestlers. I'm not extremely concerned about the level of wrestling and grappling that I get from my team and instruction. I do think there's huge benefit to cross training with other MMA fighters who fight at a very high level, who know things that I don't know. I will always pursue that knowledge and that information and that experience, but it won't be because I feel like I don't have high level enough partners at home. If I get the knowledge and I bring it back to my camp, we good. So cross training, yes. But I'll never leave my gym. I think we got everything we need to be successful. Uh, question from Oren. No disrespect, you are still my favorite. But after your last fight, do you still believe you can beat anyone if you hit that one clean shot? That is a fantastic question. Now, let me tell you this, Oren. I do think if I hit people with that one shot, I will knock them out cold. I don't think that will ever change. I think I have God given power on another level, right? But I think that it is a faulty game plan and approach to have to fighting at the highest level. If I bank on winning by knockout in every fight, any fight that doesn't win in knockout, obviously I'm going to be using a losing strategy in. Um, I think that I will never not be the guy that's trying to knock people out, right? I will always want to finish people, but I do think my approach to fighting, my approach to winning fights could be a little bit more complete. I think it could be a little bit more complete. So yes and no. I do think that one shot, I have that one shot power, and I think that that will always be a factor in my fights. But I do think that I can use other elements of fighting to make me as an athlete, as an MMA fighter, more successful against different people. And that's all the questions that I chose to answer for today. Thank you guys for listening. So I love you guys. Thank you to everybody that supported me in 2025 and is still here now after such a wild ride. And I am so excited for 2026 and cannot wait to get back in there and make you guys proud. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all soon.